I'm sitting in my room on my own with all this context, all these kind of pair programmers, pair product managers, pair finance controllers. I've got a whole team of people here, and I'm the CEO in the middle. It's ridiculous what you can do. You know?
I've been building web apps with Webflow for a while. So like Webflow, Memberstack, originally Zapier, then I started using Make. And it was so cool because you're actually able to get genuine functional web apps working using these tools, but like you kind of have to be hacky.
So I sold my 2 Bitcoins so I could go skiing. Now, obviously, that was a ridiculous
skiing trip.
Very expensive skiing trip.
But the thing is, similar to you, all I had was a goal to build something properly, professionally, without having to do same thing. I tried to learn coding and it's like, all right, yeah, I can kind of figure this stuff out, but like you're spending 80, 90% of your time on this hard skill, this like syntax and figuring out how all this stuff works. It's a big, big, big learning curve, and I just wasn't into it. So fast forward, I love Webflow. I really built the biggest part of my career all around Webflow, but that desire to just build stuff, I don't care what's happening under the hood, especially once I discovered Claude Code. I took a kind of a longer path. So I've been building web apps with Webflow for a while. So like Webflow, Memberstack, originally Zapier, then I started using Make. And it was so cool because you're actually able to get genuine functional web apps working using these tools, but like you kind of have to be hacky. Like I was using the Webflow CMS as my database for most things. And here's the thing, it works, but it's not the best. So then Wized came around and I was using ChatGPT to help me make like GPT 3.5 sort of thing.
Yeah.
These scripts for Wized, and that was a huge upgrade. Like, okay, this actually feels like a real app at this point, not just something that I threw together using a couple of tools. So that was super cool. I got super into Wized. And then shortly after that, Cursor came around. And then I'm like, okay, I don't need to have a conversation with ChatGPT, paste it into here, do the stuff in Webflow. I just say, make me this, it does that, refine, iterate. Then Claude Code came around, and that, for me, absolutely changed everything. So you've used Claude Code, obviously, as you said. You use Cursor too, yeah?
Yeah, I think, probably, my last subscription for Cursor probably ran out about a week ago.
Yeah.
And I use it every so often, sometimes just because it's almost my IDE of choice when I want to, I don't know, boot up a server or reset. Again, I'm coming from a world where, and one of the benefits, I suppose, and one of the crutches of Webflow is you don't have to deal with any of that server stuff.
Yes.
So we're now in a new world where you still have to deal with all that stuff. And there are tools coming out, I guess, where you don't have to think about, like Shit Studio with you guys. It's like, it's coming out and it's doing a bit more hand holding and a bit more of a, the setup stuff, but you still have to think about this stuff, and when the server goes down or a message comes up. So there's still lots of learning curves, and Cursor is almost like my geeky part of it. But most of the time I'm in the Claude Code environment, and the terminal is just something that's kind of hidden away, and I'm not. I think it's really interesting because the way I went was I started these boot camps that I had. Okay, these boot camps, you'd go in there and they would teach you the basics, real basics. And just to give you an idea of when I was doing this boot camp, Bitcoin at the time was $17 for one Bitcoin. Okay, and I'll just tell you a side story. Is we're all sitting down there having lunch and on these bean bags, because that was the thing you did. Everyone has bean bags. They don't have chairs. They have bean bags, and then. The founder of the coding camp was like, I'm importing a Bitcoin ATM. It's going to be the first in London and all this kind of stuff. And a few of us were like, what is this Bitcoin? And he's trying to explain what this digital currency is. There's one finance guy who got it, but the rest of us were very dismissive. It's like, this is like make-believe money. You're like, one of the guys, he went off and he started mining these things. And he came back and I mined 3 Bitcoin today. And then the next day, I mined 6. And by the end of the course, I was like, so I bought 2 of these Bitcoins. Just like, I didn't have a lot of cash at the time. I was running this coffee stuff, doing a boot camp. and not have a lot of income. And I bought these 2 Bitcoin, and it was, I think about 4 years later, someone again, hey, do you want to come skiing? We're going, and again, it's like, I don't have a lot of cash right now. So, and skiing's not as expensive as it is now, but it was relatively expensive. So these Bitcoin were, I think, about $200 a Bitcoin. So I sold my 2 Bitcoin so I could go skiing. Now, obviously, that was a ridiculous
skiing trip.
very expensive skiing trip. But going back to the boot camp, is we used to sit there and write the syntax and learn the syntax and learn all the ways of doing it. And one day we had an agency downstairs who was seen as this like a really good product engineering agency. They came in and did what they call pair programming. So you'd both sit at the same screen, and one of you would be typing, but you'd both be sort of inputting into what that code was. And, they'd come in, these guys are experts. These guys they do this production level for banks, and, they are so good at this stuff. And I'm sitting there as a junior, and they're really good teaching you. And like wind on to now, that is essentially what we have now. Is Claude Code is like a pair programmer. I guess they're doing 90%, not even 95% of the code writing syntax, but all the time we're having this conversation with them in a way that, what should we do? How should we do it? Why should we do it this way? What are the pros and cons? All that is that little bit of product development is where I really get a kick. I do it for anything. If I'm going on Amazon, I just don't buy the first set of tennis balls. Like, I just bought some tennis balls. Like, I have to, which is the best one, which is the best value, which loses its bounce. Like, and that in the development world, in the product development world, is so powerful when you've got something like Claude next to you, especially when you give it context, and it has context for your code base, and it has context for your business case, and it has context from all the skills that you're putting into it. And it's just that little power thing. And I'm sitting in my room on my own with all this context, all these kind of pair programmers, pair product managers, pair finance controllers. I've got a whole team of people here, and I'm the CEO in the middle. It's ridiculous what you can do,
Yeah.
Now, the kicker, I think, is, you mentioned Squarespace and Wix. Is like, I remember one of the first websites I did in London for money was someone said, can you do me a Squarespace website? And I hadn't really touched Squarespace, but I thought, hey, like, how hard could it be? Went in, did a bit of research, got a Squarespace template. They're architects, I think, at the time. Found them like 3 or 4 templates, got them to choose one, populated it, bang, paid me the money, off you go. I just did something that they couldn't do, and I was the technical guy. And more recently, obviously, Webflow had become bigger. So people are coming to you now not to build them a website, but to build them a Webflow website. And I think as we move into this new world of, going back to building solutions, a lot of us try to chat about it in WhatsApp. It's like, where do the leads come from? How do you get into businesses as a freelancer or a studio or an agency? How do you get into businesses and pitch your solutions? Because there's no one coming to you. No one's coming to Matt in the middle of Ireland going, can you build me a website? Everyone's still going, can you build me a Webflow website? And that's because Webflow have a name. They do all their marketing. There's a lot of, fluff around the benefits. And, I've been on a few enterprise calls where I'm like having to bite my hand going, what you're saying is not actually strictly true. You can't actually do this, but you can understand, the sales pitter patter and stuff. So it's just a really interesting time. And I think there's a few of us who are almost like, you had Luke. Luke's on one of our WhatsApps. We have Luke and Tim who did SVG import, and Aline, and we're on this little WhatsApp, and we're constantly saying which way to go, which way not to go. And Luke's started with Webflow. He still uses Webflow, but he's like, if I'm going to build anything, I'm not using Webflow. I can't. I'm using SvelteKit. I'm using technology that can move quickly and all that kind of stuff. But when you're a freelancer and you're used to these sort of leads coming in, it keeps you in that Webflow ecosystem. Like you've probably created a lot of waves in the fact that, Memberstack is a Webflow tool. I know you're not solely Webflow, but you're a Webflow, very popular in the Webflow world. And you've come along and gone, we're not using Webflow anymore. We're all scratching our heads going, gee, this is really odd. Like, surely you're not playing the game. You're not playing the kind of, Webflow is the best. You're playing the we're a business. We're going to move where we need to move to. But for a lot of us freelancers as agencies, I think probably a lot of agencies now are going, James at Produlus, he was like, they have to diversify because the skill sets or the capabilities of what all these new ways of building are giving us is magical. But we still have this Webflow, we're still in the Webflow camp, we're still Webflow developers. And I think what a lot of us now are going, when are Webflow going to catch up? It feels like it's really harsh because we're their biggest fan and their biggest critic. If you listen to any of our podcast stuff, Aline and I, like we would have big arguments on the podcast of going like, I would say they're doing this badly and he would say they're doing amazing and he would say, oh, they're doing this badly. And so we kind of love Webflow and what they do. The people who will work there are really ambitious. There's some, like Corey had the other day, he's a massive part of the Webflow story. And a lot of the guys there are doing their best, but it's really hard to see where they're going right now and how they're going to keep their edge because Claude is just eating stuff for breakfast and it's not going to go away. There's still a lot of clients where I would go, yeah, Webflow is the best for you. Like Webflow is perfect for what you need to do, but it's not carte blanche anymore. It's not the one. It's not like Webflow versus WordPress or Webflow versus Squarespace. It's not a little shootout table. It's like, I need to dig down. What are you going to use it for? Who's using it? How often are you changing content? What are your plans for next year? And once you have that picture, then you can go, oh yeah, actually Webflow's all right. But some instances, it's like, no, don't go starting with Webflow because there's so many more opportunities on this custom side. But as soon as you word say custom and take away this Webflow sheen, people start getting scared of, will it break? Is Matt going to be the bottleneck? Is it, what happens if you get knocked over by the number 53 bus? Like, so there's so much thing going on at the moment. It's just a bit of a head mess up,
It is. I want to next talk about Webflow's AI features, what they're doing and what they're not doing, and also which projects, because that's kind of the same thing I'm noticing less and less I would use Webflow for this. I want to super quickly, because your Bitcoin story was really funny and it reminded me of something that I've never said on camera before. Basically, I think it was 2010. I don't know. It was when Bitcoin was $1, I think, if I'm not wrong. I was born in 2001. So I'm pretty young, and I had just gotten $300 for my birthday, Canadian dollars. And for whatever reason, my friends and we discovered this thing called Bitcoin, and we thought it was so cool. None of us understood what it was, but we were like, whoa, internet money. That's so super cool. So I go to my parents and I'm like, guys, can I use your credit card so that I can, spend my birthday money on Bitcoin? And they're like, no. Like, it's going to be the next big thing. I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know any of this stuff. I just thought it was cool and I wanted to buy it. And they're like, no, they thought it was video game money, basically. Like, like FIFA points, like that kind of thing. They refused. I kept begging them and eventually I gave up. So I wanted to buy 300 Bitcoin. My father would not let me use his credit card for it. And, people ask me, the reason why I love what you said so much is because people are like, whoa, imagine if you did that. I'm like, buddy, you think I'd be holding on to Bitcoin today? It would have gone from $1 to $10. And I would have thought I was like,
yeah, exactly.
Wall Street. I would have sold it all and bought a new PlayStation or something and moved on. So that's hilarious. You reminded me of that. And yeah, on the topic of Webflow right now. So again, 1 year ago, I was using Webflow for virtually anything. Any sites, obviously. Web apps, I was building either with Webflow Memberstack Make or Webflow Memberstack Wized. And the thing is, Webflow is never made for web apps. You can absolutely build web apps with Webflow, especially with some of these other tools in combination, but it was never made for web apps. And so once Cursor and then Claude Code came around, it seemed like, the perfect Webflow replacement for web apps. But I don't think that Webflow had any, concerns about that because they were never trying to make a product for web apps. And so it's all good. And at that point in time, let's say mid last year, probably July, August 2025, if you were to ask me, I'd be like, use Claude Code to build a web app, use Webflow to build a marketing site. And that was where I was at. And I thought that was the way that things were going to continue to go. Then Opus 4.5 came out. And it was funny. I think there's probably a video on the Memberstack channel the first time I used it. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It's cool, nothing crazy. But that was because it doesn't give you these impressive results right off the bat. It just gets it. Like when you want to do something, it can just figure it out. And so then I started to get a little bit more ambitious, going from like micro SaaS to building some much more serious, large scale web apps. And then the Memberstack site came around. So we're all on our team using Claude Code more and more and more. The Memberstack site is, and I said this in the video too, it was a mess. It was like legacy stuff in the CMS, a billion different class naming conventions, not so much like div block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but it was like you'd have client first, and then you'd have like Webflow template marketplace conventions, then you'd have like nothing, like just nonsense. So it was a mess. And I, in 2024, went through and like reskinned the website, but I didn't do a full cleanup because that would have taken a very long time. Fast forward November 2025, and we're like, okay, our site is out of date. We have a lot of stuff we need to update. Oh no, I'm just thinking about having to go back in because I'm working with Claude Code so often. I'm so used to just saying, do this, it does it. I want to make like large scale content updates. It just does it. And so whatever, we're like, we need to fix up our Webflow site. Never even thought we're going to use Claude Code for this because again, I was like, Webflow is marketing sites, Claude Code is web apps, fine. And apps of any other kind. Then talking to my coworker, Molly, and we're like, okay, what do we actually want? This is going to be a big project. It's going to take a month or more to rebuild it in Webflow. So we need buy-in from the rest of the team. Let's kind of scratch out like a prototype of what we want the new site to look like, just so we get buy-in from the rest of our team. Yeah. So we're talking about it. We did it. And at the end of the day, we have this like homepage, which looks so much better than our Webflow homepage that we had. Again, not necessarily because of Webflow versus the stack we're using. It's just, it looked better. At the end of the day, we got a better product out of it. And then we're talking and we're like, okay, now we need to sell the rest of the team on rebuilding our Webflow site. And then I don't know if it was her or me, one of us were like, but why would we rebuild it? We already have it. It works. It's not like my from back in the day. Like this is not a prototype. This is production code. So we're talking about it and we're like, we have this preconceived notion of like, no, you don't build marketing sites with Claude Code. So we're like, why not though? Trying to come up with reasons. We're like, oh, but the CMS. I'm like, yeah, but there's a lot of headless CMSs that we can hook up and still have a CMS. Design control. Well, I mean, you can do anything you want in Claude Code. You want it to be 1 pixel less. You can either edit the code yourself or tell Claude to make it 1 pixel less. So we're just like spitballing, trying to come up with a reason not to do that. We couldn't come up with one. And so I'm like, okay, how about this? I'm going to rebuild it and just start. We're not even going to tell the rest of the team. I'm going to start rebuilding it. And then I was thinking, I'm like, in a couple hours or a couple days, something's going to happen that's going to teach me like, bad idea. Don't do that. There's a reason. Webflow for marketing sites, Claude Code for other stuff. But it didn't happen. So I built out all the static pages, started with the CMS, migrated the CMS, and then the whole site was done. And I'm like, oh, we have a way better site right now. Kind of developed in less time than it took me to rebuild the homepage last year. We're like, oh, geez, okay. And we love Webflow at Memberstack. So we're like, leaving Webflow? No way. But at the same time, like, look at the benefits. Look what we have. Look how much better the site looks, how much better it performs, and more importantly, how easy it is to ship new updates. So like I've done, I had an agency. I did a lot of like Webflow sales calls, basically. Both I've been on like Webflow enterprise sales calls with the Webflow team and also just, me selling clients on Webflow who traditionally use WordPress or something like that. And the whole sell is like, we're going to set this up for you and you're going to be able to make updates to your site quickly. That's the thing. And so now we're looking at this site and we're like, we were sitting there taking way too long to update our Webflow site because it takes comparatively a long time. And now we're able to whip up like beautiful new landing pages in like 1 or 2 hours. So at that point, I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, I've been saying Webflow's for marketing websites this whole time and Claude Code isn't. I don't think I agree with that statement anymore. And so the question left is, where does that leave Webflow? And first thing I want to say is not everyone's me. Not everyone's you. Some people, they just straight up prefer it. They don't want to build a marketing site with Claude Code. That's fine. Maybe that's not going to last forever. But if you ask me at this point in time, I have not started a new Webflow project in a little while at this point. I just can't. I haven't had any reason to. Everything I've done has been in Claude Code. But if you were to ask me, when would you still start a Webflow project? It would be like, you have a company which is very artistic. For example, Webflow agencies or any web development agencies. You want insane animations, like a real storytelling website. I don't really know how easy that would be to communicate to Claude Code. So for something like that, I would maybe still do it in Webflow, but it's like, would I?